misunderstood. I don't know if people know what the actual term means and that they kind of go together. I hear textile, I hear factory, but what does it mean? Because people don't know.
The kind of dye that is used in the factory, it's an acid dye, and that sounds scarier than it is.
Mm.
Hair is acidic. The normal pH of hair is 4.5 to 5.5. This dye is made to work at that pH. And so that's why it's called an acid dye. It isn't called an acid dye because you're putting hair in some super strong toxic acid. And so the way it works is the dye has a negative charge and the hair has a positive charge. And so the dye under high heat or under heat sticks to the proteins in the hair. That's how it works. And I'll just go ahead and start some drama. You hear clients talk about textile dyes as if we're doing something inappropriate, as if we're putting shoe polish on hair. And that's not the case. These dyes were made for protein-rich fibers. So protein-rich fibers like wool, which is sheep hair, silk, cashmere, which is goat hair, leather, anything that's protein-rich, this dye is made for that. And so we're not doing something inappropriate by using this in the hair industry. It's totally appropriate. It's what it was made for. Salon-style dyes, which are oxidative dyes, a reaction takes place, an oxidative reaction takes place, and then the byproduct deposits the hair. So you have to use peroxide and you have to use ammonia to get the pH right. These acid dyes don't need any of that. They work just with some heat. So,
I have a question for you, Jason.
So that,
because I haven't seen how this process is done. You've seen it done because you do it. Why would they use acid dye or textile dyes at the factory and not on real human hair? Do you think it's do you think it's probably unsafe to use something like that?
It would be unsafe to do it on a person's head because of the heat involved.
Yeah.
So in a salon, you use peroxide, and that works. That doesn't burn skin, but the temperatures that you have to go to make acid dye bind is like 85 degrees Celsius and higher, and everything in Fahrenheit in the kitchen.
What's 85 degrees Celsius in Fahrenheit? 185 degrees Fahrenheit.
And you can do that on somebody's head.
So and that's one thing about wig work. We are able to do things and think outside the box and do things in other ways as artists that you can't necessarily do to, while it's attached to the human head.
Allie, what do you think the percentages of wigs within like this luxury market that are textile dyed or have that within it, but then on top of it are salon colored or hand painted?
I would think that for the Chinese market, they're creating more with textile factory dyes so that they can sell direct to consumer or, in large quantities. Because, if you order just a base of a natural color or a 613, there's a lot of work that goes into it.
Yeah.
Now, selfishly, I love that kind of work. So I order more of those blank pieces than I would a factory color. But in business terms, it's not smart for a business like Stacked Hair to only do that, because your wigs would be way too expensive and the market wouldn't be able to afford it.
Yeah.
So factory dyed pieces are so beautiful, and they create such an amazing even a base to start with. They're beautiful as is.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't know the answer to that one.
So why do you think factory colored wigs get a bad rap?
I think that people find that there's a big variety of quality hair from factories, and people have started associating factory dyes with damage. It isn't the dyeing process that's causing the damage. If anything, applying factory dyes is less damaging than a salon style dye because you don't have to use a peroxide.
There are certain factory dyes that can be lifted and certain that can't. And you can only push some of those so far. And some, bleaching knots. For me, I love to have a clean knot.
Yeah.
you know, and so if I'm purchasing a factory dyed wig, it has to be with a factory dye that I can lift,
Yes.
or that's light enough that I can create some sort of contrast to not show that knot. So I think that caused a lot of, you know, ick,
Yes.
you know, if you will, in our consumer base. They just assumed that factory dyes were just crap.
Yes.
Which is
Yeah.
not true,
Yeah.
because think
True.
about it, like if you go get your hair colored,
Yeah.
wouldn't it be great if that color never faded?
Yeah.
And you don't want your clients to have to get their color refreshed in 3 months.
Yes. I will say, when I take care of my factory colored wigs versus my hand painted, the factory color a year later versus the hand painted, and it could be like a blonde within the same shade, there is a huge difference. Huge.
If it
And
was
then
done
you have
well.
to remember there's going to be a cost associated with the hand painted, because now you're possibly sending it in. It needs to be refreshed. Another process this wig is now going to go through. There's sometimes a little bit more that people need to realize and think of. It's going to be an extra cost added onto it if you want to keep that wig and keep it for a long time.